Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this video I'm going to take a look at the best PvE comps that you can play in Hearthstone Mercenaries right now after Khotun has been added to the game and balance patch has buffed up stuff like Xyrella and Rexxar, so some new comps have been added to the list. There are overall 15 PvE comps listed here, so let's dive right in. At number 15 we have Explorers. Explorers have equipment that synergizes with other Explorers, abilities that synergize with other Explorers, but the synergies are still a little bit weak. Finley, Bran, Elise and Reno. In practice, Finley and Elise are the ones that are going to be carrying. Finley and Elise are going to be the damage dealers. Sometimes you want to use Bran with them, sometimes you bring in Reno with them. And if you happen to land on some Explorer buff treasures, they're kind of okay, but they're still one of the weaker comps. Still a comp that is capable of doing many normal bounties and even some heroics, but there's no real reason to play with them. And kind of the same thing also applies to Murlocs, even though personally I find Murlocs a little bit more fun. I mean, what's there not to like? Murlocs have a pretty good color spread. There's reds, greens, blues, there's some stuff on the bench. They are a little bit on the slow side, and while they can get impressive amounts of attack and they can do quite a lot of hitting, they are weak against high attack enemies because they're going to take a lot of hits in return. Coming in at number 13 is the comp that pretty much everyone started the game with, so Cariel, Samuro and Xyrella. Cariel, Samuro, Xyrella, all of these are free starter mercs. Cariel handles taunting, Samuro is the main damage dealer, Xyrella takes away some attack from Samuro's targets and enables Samuro's double strike. In addition, it's a good idea to put on the bench, the first bench at least for this comp, Kugi, Brukan, Guff, so the budget nature comp, because Cariel, Samuro, Xyrella are great at climbing most bounties, and then there's, especially in Winter Spring, there are some bounties where the blue casters are just really strong. So you can climb with Cariel, Samuro, Xyrella, and then Kugi, Brukan, Guff can handle the boss for you. So this is probably something that you're going to be starting the game with, but it is a little bit on the slow side. Those budget nature casters, Kugi, Brukan, Guff, can also be combined with other budget nature mercs, especially Yulon and Anaconda, because Anaconda makes that Viper, Yulon can give the Viper a lot more health, and then you can just do some big Viper things. If you happen to have GC available, then GC is an excellent addition to this, so then you can climb with Yulon, Anaconda, GC, just making that huge Viper, which can also take down some of the bosses, and then you still have Kugi, Brukan, Guff for some of the boss fights, or even Anaconda, Brukan, Guff, depending on the colors. So overall a pretty strong budget comp. If you're looking for that intersection between fun and strong, then pirates might be a thing. Pirates are really a player's comp, because you need to switch your comp around a lot depending on what you're going to be facing. That's why pirates also have it hard to fit in people to unlock equipment or to get some coins, because you really want to use all 6 slots. I typically use 5 slots for pirates, and then I have Cassagus on top, because Cassagus just is so good, for example, with Sneed. So you have that Smite, Edwin Patches, which is kind of the standard pirate comp, but then you can also do Eudora, Sneed, Cassagus, and you can do various other combinations depending on the colors of the opponents. Very flexible team, pretty strong team when used properly, but because you have to switch your team around a lot and then you have to switch around your abilities a lot, it is not very easy to play. And new to the list now after the buffs is Beasts, because Rexxar buffs are actually really good. Rexxar Animal Companion now no longer has a cooldown, and that means that you can summon an Animal Companion every single turn. And when you position Rexxar to the left and Trigor in the middle, that means that Animal Companion is always going to be next to Trigor. If your opponents are attacking, okay, you summon Misha, there's a taunt minion, Trigor gets to backlash them. If your opponents are not attacking, well, you can always summon Huffer. Huffer is going to rush into the enemies and Trigor is going to get to backlash again. So just very strong things that can be done with this. Also on the bench I have Xuen. I typically use King Mukla as the third one because King Mukla can attack, King Mukla can defend. I use Refreshing Bananas, so King Mukla delivers more health to my characters, so it just helps me defend as well. But sometimes if there's a very heavy blue fight, then Xuen, bringing in Xuen, and Xuen just smacks into those blues and deals a ton of damage. So Beast is one of the more recent competitive comps enabled by the recent balance patch. And whenever you're discussing Hearthstone Mercenaries PvE comps, it is impossible to ignore Orcs, because Orcs are just strong. And Orcs, you really want to get stat buffs. You also want to get start of game stat buffs for the Orcs that are on the bench, so that they will still buff everyone who's on the board, and they can just become really, really huge and smack everything down. Thrall Garrosh Saurfang is kind of the basic opener. Thrall with Ring of Strength, so that whenever opponents are attacking, your Orcs get more attack. Saurfang is also going to buff everyone, and Garrosh is just very good at protecting everyone with the taunt. And those typically just smack through most of things, and then for the boss fight you might want to look a little bit deeper into what Orcs exactly to bring. And coming in at number 8 is Old Gods. I have tried to make Old Gods work before, but it wasn't until Cthulhu was added to the game that Old Gods actually became viable. Specifically Yashura's Yogg-Saron Cthulhu, because this means that with the right use of abilities and equipment, you can get Yashura's and Cthulhu's big cooldowns enabled for turn 2. So turn 2, your Old Gods are going to get a bunch more attack random enemies, and then Cthulhu is going to deal AoE damage and heal up whenever there's death blows, and that's just a very, very strong 1-2 punch. Nezot is clearly the weakest of the three, but can find occasional use. And also there is space to get some really strong Old God treasures with this comp, which can make everything even easier. Before the introduction of Cthulhu, the only way to use Old Gods in PvE was with Yashurash, and sadly the Old God comp and the Yashurash comp use different pieces of equipment for Yashura, so you have to make choices there. But this comp is basically built around Yashurash, then Murky, summoning those additional Murlocs, Kazakus, summoning the Taunt Golem, then Yashurash turn 1 grabs attack from all friendlies, attacks into enemies, and hopefully just clears the board in one turn. However, sometimes this comp can hit a wall, opponents have too much health, especially now that we have had a lot of Merc buffs recently. So that means that if you run into a Merc fight during a bounty climb, then those Mercs are going to have more health and Yashurash doesn't kill them as easy. So that's why I'm currently using also Vol'jin and Azara, so I can do Vol'jin, Azara, Kazakus, the Shadow comp. Sometimes that's better, sometimes just casting is stronger than bringing Yashura's out at all. But on the other hand, that Shadow comp, the only viable Shadow comp, basically, it only has casters, so it's vulnerable to specific color combinations. So this comp is really, really fast when it works. It also has some ways to solve problems thanks to the Shadow component, but it can hit a wall and just fail to do things. At number 6 we have Bainegore. There's a lot more information about Bainegore right now, because the Cthulhu event, one of the tasks, had you complete Heroic Cariel with only protectors, for which Bainegore was kind of the obvious solution. And because of all that information, sometimes with specific combinations of health, Bane might not be the main target, and that might mean Trigore becomes the main target, and in those scenarios, Yulon is actually stronger than Niu Zhao. So currently in Bainegore I'm using Bane, Trigore, Yulon and Niu Zhao, so that I can switch that third Merc between the two as needed. The last balance patch also made Holy better, because Xyrella was buffed, and this enabled Holy to also do this sort of Irel Cornelius Tyrael, where you actually attack the opponents, instead of just doing the old-fashioned Anduin Cornelius Velen, where everyone just sits behind Cornelius' healing, and then Anduin eventually just AoEs everything down, while Velen makes Holy abilities go multiple times and gives Holy damage. So this added flexibility means that Holy is now stronger, Holy is now able to do things that Holy was not able to do before, because Holy basically has two different approaches to the fights. You can still go with the old school blues protected by Cornelius, but some fights you might just want to bring out your greens, so more flexibility, still a very slow comp, but overall a little bit stronger now than it used to be. Speaking of slow comps, Nature is also pretty slow comp, but Nature is just very, very strong. I actually revisited some older bounties recently, and in those older bounties especially, I realized just how strong Nature can be sometimes. Nature just rolls through all obstacles, even if it's a little slow. And the current Nature teams also have flexibility, because it used to be that you're always running Malfurion, Bruka and Guff. Okay, that's fine, they heal, they have some limited taunt abilities, but then we can also combine this with Vipers, because you can also do Malfurion, Yulon and Akondra, and you can do like Kuki Brukankaf is sometimes needed. So Nature Comp right now has a ton of flexibility. It can destroy threats by attacking into them, it can destroy threats by ranged attacks, and it can also heal a lot. So Nature is just in a pretty good position, especially if you're not in a hurry. And yet another comp that grinds just slow and steady through PvE encounters is Dragons. The core of the Dragons team also works without the expensive parts. Yulon, Nefarian, Sinestra is typically the Dragon team that you want to bring, and all of those are rare mercs, so this is actually a budget comp as such. Cookie, of course, giving them a little bit more health is preferable. Brightwing, Onyxia, the buffed Brightwing, even stronger now than it used to be. Give this comp some caster options, so you have even more flexibility on what do you bring, and just make it very, very sturdy and almost unkillable. However, when you want to combine speed with power, then the top 2 comps are clearly separate from the rest. And number 2 is Frost. Frost has a lot of tricks. Localar, Warden, Jaina, and then Belinda. So you can switch in Belinda if needed, although Localar, Warden, Jaina gets through most encounters. Localar with that Frigid Winds equipment, just getting spell damage as opponents are faster than you to act, and that means that you're just going to blow out everything in the game, and it's just very, very strong. And also there's flexibility because you have freezes, you have various abilities that you can use to just survive even difficult situations. But when it comes to PvE, the ultimate firepower is in fire. Belinda, Ragnar's Geddon is the ultimate fire team, Belinda with the water elemental, which means that you're basically taking one opponent out of the game on turn 1, just freezing them, keeping them locked out, while you're dealing tons and tons of damage. So you have survivability, you have unparalleled firepower, and that just makes the best comp in the game. You can also do faster fire if you don't need that additional survivability, because either Yulon or Bran can make fire even faster, less targeting, just click, click, click and go. But that one will hit a wall at some point, at which stage you will want to bring out your Belinda. So as of right now, these are the top 15 best PvE comps in Hearthstone Mercenaries. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.